The stars had always seemed peaceful to Park Sung. He stood at the observation window of the orbital station horizon, watching Earth spin slowly below. Blue oceans, green lands, white clouds. His home, the home of 8 billion souls who had no idea what was coming. The alarm changed everything. Park Sung turned from the window as red lights filled the command center. Officers ran to their stations. Screens flickered with data that made no sense at first. Then it made too much sense. Admiral Captain Kim Yuna said, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. We have contact. Multiple signatures. They are not human. Park Sung walked to the main screen. He was 62 years old. His hair had turned gray long ago. His body carried the weight of decades in service. But his eyes were sharp, and his mind was sharper. He had prepared for this moment since he was a young officer reading classified reports about things found in the desert. Things that fell from the sky, things that were not from Earth. How many ships? He asked. 47. They stopped near Jupiter. They are transmitting. Transmission began to play. The language was alien. The translation software built from 60 years of intercepted communications converted it to words Park Sung could understand. S. People of the third planet. You are now subjects of the Valoran Dominion. We have conquered 32 species across 11 star systems. Your world is small. Your technology is weak. Your people are divided. You have 10 rotations to submit. Send representatives to kneel before the Dominion envoy. If you refuse, your cities will burn. Your people will die. Your world will become a warning to others. This is not a request. This is your only future. Choose wisely. The transmission ended. Silence filled the command center. Every officer looked at Admiral Park Seung. Kim Yuna stood beside him. She was 38, born in Seoul, trained in every form of warfare humanity had developed. She had studied the intercepted alien communications for 15 years. She knew what the Valoran Dominion was. She knew what they had done to other species. They think we are primitive, she said quietly. They have been watching us. They saw our wars, our conflicts, our struggles. They believe we are easy prey. Park Sung nodded slowly. What they saw was the surface. They did not look deeper. He thought about the secret facilities built under mountains, the research stations hidden on the dark side of the moon, the weapons developed from technology found in crashed vessels, the ships constructed in orbital shipyards that did not officially exist. For 60 years, humanity had been listening to the stars. For 40 years, they had been learning. For 20 years, they had been building. The governments of Earth knew the truth. They knew humanity was not alone. They knew someday something would come, and they had prepared in silence, hiding their work from their own people, hiding it from whatever was watching from above. Contact Earth Command, Park Sung ordered. Tell them the moment has arrived. Within hours, the leaders of every nation received the same message. The debates were short. The old conflicts between countries suddenly seemed very small. A new enemy had appeared, one that threatened not one nation, but all of humanity. For the first time in history, the world spoke with one voice. The answer was no. Park Sung recorded the response himself. He stood in front of the camera, wearing his uniform, showing no fear. To the Valoran Dominion, we received your message. We understand your demands. We have studied your history. We know what you have done to others. You believe we are weak. You believe we will kneel. You are wrong. Humanity does not submit. Humanity does not surrender. If you want our world, you will have to take it, and we will make you pay for every inch in blood. This is our answer. Come and try. The transmission was sent across every frequency the Dominion used. It reached the 47 ships waiting near Jupiter. It reached the Dominion homeworld far across the galaxy. It reached every corner of their empire. On the Dominion flagship, High Arbiter Thalox watched the human's message. He was tall, thin, with gray skin and eyes like black glass. He had conquered 12 worlds personally. He had watched species beg for mercy. He had never seen anything like this. They refuse, his second officer said, disbelief in his voice. A species with no fleet, no defenses, no empire. They refuse the dominion. Thalek studied the human on the screen. The old male with gray hair and hard eyes. There was something in that face. Something Thalek had not seen in a very long time. It took him a moment to recognize it. Defiance. True defiance. Not the desperate fear of the doomed, but the cold resolve of someone ready to fight. Interesting, Thalek said. They have courage. It will not save them, but it is interesting. Send word to the punishment fleet. Tell them to advance. We will make an example of this world. On Earth, the people learned the truth. Governments revealed what they had hidden for decades. The aliens were real. They were coming. And humanity would fight. Park Sung watched the news broadcasts from his station. He saw the fear, the panic, the chaos, but he also saw something else. He saw people coming together. Volunteers flooding military stations. Scientists working without sleep. Factories shifting to produce weapons. A species that had spent centuries fighting itself now turned to face a common enemy. Kim Yuna joined him at the window. Below them, Earth continued to spin. Peaceful, beautiful, worth protecting. The punishment fleet is moving, she reported. 200 warships. They will arrive in 6 days. In our defenses. The Black Line is ready. The fleet is positioned. Dr. Shinbora's weapons are installed and tested. She paused. We are as prepared as we can be. What? Park Sung nodded. 200 warships against humanity's hidden fleet. The numbers were not good. But numbers were not everything. They think this will be easy, he said. They think we will break. They do not understand what we are. What are we, Admiral? Park Sung thought about human history. The wars, the suffering, the countless times humanity had faced destruction and survived. They had fought plagues, famines, disasters. They had killed each other in numbers that would horrify any other species. And they were still here. Still fighting. Still refusing to die. We are survivors, he said. We are fighters. And we do not know how to quit. The stars waited. The enemy approached. And humanity prepared to answer with fire. The punishment. Fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel like predators entering hunting grounds. 200 warships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. They moved in perfect formation, their weapons charged, their crews confident. They had done this before. Many times. The result was always the same. High Arbiter Thalek stood on his command bridge, watching the small blue planet grow larger on his screens. Such a tiny world. Such a foolish species. They had refused the dominion. Now they would learn the cost of defiance. Scan for defenses, he ordered. His officers worked their controls. The readings confused them. We detect the orbital station, a few small vessels near their moon, nothing else. Thalek smiled. As expected. The humans had nothing. Their brave words were just that. Words, empty sounds made by a species too primitive to understand its own weakness. Move the fleet into attack position. Target their largest cities. We will burn 3 of them. Then we will ask again if they wish to submit. The punishment fleet advanced toward Earth. They passed the outer planets. They passed the belt of rocks and ice between Mars and Jupiter. They did not notice the objects hidden among the asteroids. They did not detect the weapons pointed at them from the darkness. Lieutenant Choi Hannah watched her screens from Battery Station 7. She was 26 years old. She had joined the military at 18. She had trained for this moment for 8 years, knowing it might never come, hoping it would never come. But now, it was here. Her station was built into a large asteroid. From the outside, it looked like dead rock. Inside, it held weapons that could tear through starship armor. Rail cannons that fired metal projectiles at incredible speeds. Missile tubes loaded with nuclear warheads. Energy disruptors designed from captured alien technology. This was the Black Line, humanity's secret defense. Dozens of hidden stations spread across the asteroid belt, waiting in silence for the enemy to come close enough. "They are entering range," her tactical officer reported. Choi Hannah took a deep breath. Her hands were steady. Her heart was calm. She thought about her parents in Busan, her younger brother studying medicine, the streets where she grew up, the people she loved. Everything depended on what happened in the next few hours. "All stations," she said into her communicator. "Fire on my command." Across the asteroid belt, human crews waited at their weapons. Fingers hovered over buttons. Eyes watched screens. Everyone held their breath. The Dominion fleet reached the center of the killing zone. Fire. The universe exploded. Rail cannon rounds tore through space at speeds the Dominion had never encountered. Their shields were designed to stop energy weapons. They were not designed for solid metal moving faster than anything they had imagined. The first rounds punched through shields like paper. Ships died before their crews understood what was happening. Missiles followed. Not the slow, clumsy missiles the Dominion used. These were fast, smart. They dodged defensive fire. They found weak points. They detonated with nuclear fury. In the first 5 minutes, 40 Dominion ships became debris. On the flagship, Thalix gripped his command chair as his ship shook from a near miss. Alarms screamed. Officers shouted reports of damage and destruction. This was impossible. This could not be happening. "Where's the fire coming from?" he demanded. "The asteroids. The weapons are hidden in the asteroids." Thalox watched his fleet die around him. Ships that had conquered worlds were being torn apart by primitives, by humans, by a species that should have been on its knees begging for mercy. Turn fire. Destroy those stations. The Dominion ships turned their weapons toward the asteroids. They found some of the hidden stations and destroyed them. But for every station they killed, 3 more continued firing. The humans had built redundancy into their defense. Lose 1 station, others covered its sector. Lose 10 stations, the line held. Behind the asteroid belt, the human fleet waited. 60 ships. Small compared to Dominion warships. Fast. Deadly Commander Li Te stood on the bridge of the carrier Sovereign. He was 45 years old. His family had known war. His grandfather survived occupation. His father rebuilt from ruins. Li Te had inherited their stubborn refusal to accept defeat. "The Black Line has broken their formation," Kim Yuna reported from her tactical station. "They are scattered, confused." Li Te nodded. "Then we finish this. All ships advance. Target their command vessels. Show no mercy." The human fleet surged forward. They were outnumbered, but they were faster and more maneuverable. Their weapons were designed specifically to kill Dominion ships. Every tactic, every weapon, every strategy had been developed through decades of studying intercepted communications and crashed vessels. The battle became chaos. Dominion ships tried to regroup. Human fighters swarmed around them like angry insects. Rail cannons tore through armor. Missiles found engines and reactors. One by one, the great warships of the Dominion fell. Thalox watched his fleet collapse. 100 ships destroyed, then 120, then 150. His mighty punishment fleet was being slaughtered by primitives. "Retreat," he ordered. The word tasted like poison in his mouth. "All ships retreat." The surviving Dominion vessels turned and fled. They activated their faster-than-light drives and vanished into the darkness between stars. Behind them, they left the wreckage of over 150 ships and the bodies of thousands of their crew. Choi. Hannah sat back in her chair as the last enemy signature disappeared from her screens. Around her, her crew was cheering. Some were crying. They had survived. They had won. She thought about the ships she had destroyed, the lives she had ended. She did not feel joy. She felt tired. She felt old. But she also felt something else. Pride. Pride in her species. Pride in what they had built. Pride in what they had done. On the Sovereign, Commander Li Te surveyed the battlefield. Debris floated everywhere. Some of it was Dominion. Some of it was human. They had lost 12 ships, nearly 2,000 people. The price of victory was never free. Admiral Park Soon's voice came through the communication system. "All units, report status," Lite responded. "The enemy has retreated. The black line held. Earth is safe. For now," Park Sung thought. For now, across the galaxy, word spread. The Dominion's punishment fleet had been defeated. A primitive species from a single planet had broken the greatest military force in the known universe. Subject worlds heard the news and wondered, if these humans could fight, could they? If these humans could win, could others? On the Dominion throne world, Empress Velfrey received the report. She sat on her throne of black stone, her face showing no emotion. Inside, she burned with rage. They would pay for this. Every human, every one of them. She would send the armada. She would burn their world to ash and scatter their remains across the void. But somewhere, deep beneath her anger, she felt something she had not felt in centuries. A small, cold feeling. A whisper of doubt, fear. She pushed it away. There was no room for fear. There was only revenge. The war had only begun. The news traveled faster than light. Through communication, relays, and trade routes, through whispered conversations and secret channels, the story spread across the galaxy. A species called humans had defied the Valoran Dominion. They had said no. And when the punishment fleet came to destroy them, the humans had destroyed the fleet instead. On 100 worlds, beings who had forgotten hope began to remember. On Sereth, a planet conquered 3 centuries ago, workers in the crystal mines stopped their labor to listen. The Dominion guards tried to silence the broadcasts, but they could not stop the whispers. The humans had won. The Dominion could be beaten. On Valaxis, a world stripped of resources and pride, scholars secretly recorded every detail of the battle. They studied human tactics. They memorized human strategies. They began to dream of freedom. On the Dominion throne world, Empress Velthury sat in her council chamber surrounded by admirals and advisors. The air was thick with fear. No one wanted to speak. No one wanted to deliver more bad news. "Explain this to me," the Empress said. Her voice was soft. That made it more terrifying. "We sent 200 ships, the finest vessels in our fleet, crews trained for generations, weapons that have crushed empires. And they were defeated by primitives who learned to fly less than 2 centuries ago." Admiral Korvac stepped forward. He was old, experienced, and brave enough to tell the truth. "They were prepared, Empress. They had been preparing for decades. They studied our communications. They built weapons designed specifically to counter our defenses. They knew we were coming. They knew how we fight. And they built something to stop us. How is this possible? Our surveillance showed a divided species. Limited technology. No space fleet, they hid it. All of it. They showed us what they wanted us to see. They let us believe they were weak." Korvax paused. "We underestimated them. It will not happen again." Velthury stood. She walked to the window and looked out at her capital city. Towers of glass and metal stretched toward the sky. Ships moved in endless streams above. This was the heart of an empire that had ruled for 1,000 years. And somewhere on a tiny blue planet, a species had dared to challenge it. "Mobilize the armada," she ordered. "Every ship, every soldier. We will not send a punishment fleet this time. We will send an extinction force. That world will burn until nothing remains but ash and memory." On Earth, humanity celebrated and mourned at the same time. They had won. But the cost was high. 2,000 dead. 12 ships destroyed. Families wept for those who would never come home. But they also understood the truth. This was only the beginning. Admiral Park Sung addressed the world from the Horizon Station. His face was tired, but his voice was strong. "We won the first battle, but the war is not over. The Dominion will come again. They will bring everything they have. They will try to destroy us completely. We must be ready. We must build faster, train harder, prepare better. Our survival depends on it. In research facilities around the world, scientists worked without rest. Dr. Shin Bora led the weapons division. She was 53 years old, small and thin, with eyes that burned with fierce intelligence. She had spent her career developing theories everyone called impossible. Now those impossible theories were humanity's best hope. The pulse engine, she explained to the military council. It converts a ship's reactor into an explosive device. Any vessel equipped with it can become a weapon capable of destroying a capital ship. Or, with enough power, cracking a planet's surface. General Okyung studied the specifications. He was a planner, a thinker, a man who understood the mathematics of war. How many can we build? We already have 47. We can produce more quickly. The technology is simple once you understand the principles. And the crews. These would be suicide missions. Dr. Shinbora's expression did not change. I designed an automatic system. No crew required. The ships fly themselves. Kyung nodded slowly. He understood what she was saying. They were building robot bombs. Weapons that could turn the tide of battle. Or, if necessary, destroy anything that threatened Earth. In the shipyards hidden across the solar system, new vessels took shape. Carriers, destroyers, fighters. Humanity was building a real fleet now. Not hiding anymore. Not pretending to be weak. They were preparing for total war. Commander Lee Tae oversaw the training of new crews. Volunteers came from every nation. Farmers, teachers, factory workers, students. They came because they understood the alternative. Submit or die. Those were the only choices the Dominion offered. You will learn to fight in ways you never imagined, Lee Tae told each new class. You will face enemies that think you are animals. You will prove them wrong. Some of you will die. But your sacrifice will protect your families, your nations, your entire species. There is no greater purpose than this. Captain Kim Yuna developed new tactical approaches. She studied the battle recordings endlessly, looking for weaknesses in Dominion formations, opportunities in their strategies. She found them. They are confident, she reported. Too confident. They expect their enemies to fight in certain ways. When we do something unexpected, they struggle to adapt. Speed and surprise are our greatest weapons. But humanity knew they could not simply defend. Defense would only delay defeat. They needed to attack. They needed to bring the war to the Dominion. Lieutenant Kang Nari worked in the communications division. She was young, only 24, but she understood something important. The Dominion's greatest weakness was not its military. It was its empire. Dozens of conquered species held together by fear. If that fear could be replaced by hope, entire structure might collapse. She began broadcasting messages across Dominion space. Simple messages. Direct messages. We are humanity. We refused to kneel. We fought and we won. You can do the same. You are not alone. The Dominion is not invincible. Rise up. Fight back. We will stand with you. On Sarath, the miners heard her words. They looked at each other with new eyes. They began to plan. On Valaxis, the scholars shared the recordings with everyone they trusted. Networks formed. Resistance cells awakened across the Empire. Something changed. The fear that had held everything together began to crack. Not breaking yet, but cracking. And through those cracks, light was starting to shine. Admiral Park Sung stood in his quarters, looking at reports from across the galaxy. Spy drones sent back images of the Dominion Armada assembling. Thousands of ships, more than humanity could ever match in direct combat. Kim Yuna entered and stood beside him. The Armada will be ready to move in 30 days, and us. We will have 120 ships. The Black Line is fully restored. Dr. Shin's weapons are in production. Park Sung was quiet for a long moment. It is not enough. Not for a defensive war. We need to change the game. Make them fight on our terms. We have discussed offensive operations, ghost fleets, strike teams, hitting their supply lines and infrastructure. Park Sung turned to face her. Begin immediately. Every day we delay is a day they grow stronger. We must become a nightmare they cannot escape. We must make them understand that attacking Earth will cost them more than they can afford to pay. Kim Yuna saluted. Understood, Admiral. I will coordinate with Commander Lee and Captain Yoon Jin. As she left, Park Sung returned to the window. Earth hung below, beautiful and fragile, somewhere out there. The largest military force in the galaxy was preparing to destroy it. He thought about the messages Lieutenant Kong was broadcasting, about the whispers of rebellion on conquered worlds, about the hope spreading through the darkness of space. Perhaps humanity could not defeat the Dominion alone, but perhaps they did not have to. Perhaps they just needed to light the fire, and fires once started were very hard to stop. The silent knife drifted through darkness without a sound. No engine glow. No energy signature. No sign that a ship was there at all. Captain Yoon Jin sat in her command chair, watching her screens with patient eyes. Her crew of 30 waited in silence. They had done this many times now. They had become ghosts. Target approaching. Her navigator whispered. Dominion supply convoy. 12 cargo ships. For escorts, Yoon Jin studied the formation. The cargo ships carried fuel and weapons for the armada. Without supplies, warships were just floating metal. This convoy represented months of production. Thousands of tons of resources. 1 hour of her time. Move to attack position. Charge weapons. Remember, fast and quiet. We hit hard, then we disappear. The silent knife slipped through the void like a shadow. By the time the Dominion detected them, it was too late. Rail cannon rounds tore through the first escort before its shields could activate. Missiles streaked toward the cargo ships. Explosions bloomed in the darkness. The remaining escorts turned to fight, but the silent knife was already moving. Weaving between debris, striking from unexpected angles, in 12 minutes, the convoy was destroyed. Yoon Jin did not wait to confirm the kills. Her ship was already running, vanishing into the blackness between stars. This was the Ghost Fleet. 12 ships, each one commanded by officers trained for one purpose, to bring terror to the Dominion. They struck supply lines. They destroyed communication relays. They attacked refueling stations. They appeared from nowhere, killed everything they touched, and disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. The Dominion had never faced an enemy like this. Their previous conquests had been straightforward. Fleets met in battle. The stronger fleet won. The weaker species submitted. But humans refused to fight that way. They refused to play by Dominion rules. Admiral Korvac studied reports of Ghost Fleet attacks with growing frustration. They destroyed the Korvath supply route, then the Valaxis relay station, then 3 refueling depots in the outer sectors. We cannot predict where they will strike next. Then increase patrols, the Empress commanded. Guard every target. If we guard everything, we guard nothing. They have the advantage of choosing their targets. We must react. Always one step behind. Belthry's eyes burned with cold fury. Then find them. Hunt them down. I want these ghosts destroyed. The ghosts could not be caught. They struck and ran. They never stayed long enough to be trapped, and every attack hurt the Dominion's ability to wage war. Meanwhile, on the surface of conquered worlds, something else was happening. On Sereth, the miners stopped working. They gathered their tools, their courage, and their anger. 3 centuries of oppression had taught them patience. The broadcasts from humanity had taught them hope. Now they would teach the Dominion fear. Dorvan was a miner. He was old, his body bent from years of labor in the crystal caves. But his mind was sharp, and his hatred for the Dominion was deep. When the broadcasts came, telling of humans who refused to kneel, he knew what he had to do. Today, we stop being slaves. He told the miners gathered in the darkness of Shaft 7. Today we become free. They attacked the guard stations at dawn. The Dominion soldiers were not prepared. They expected obedience, not rebellion. The miners had numbers, desperation, and weapons made from mining tools. Within hours, The processing facility was in rebel hands. News of Sarath spread through the underground networks. Other worlds heard. Other species watched. On Valaxis, scholars became soldiers. They had spent years studying Dominion weaknesses, human tactics, ways to fight back. Now they put their knowledge into action. Communications centers were sabotaged. Patrol ships were ambushed. Government officials disappeared in the night. On the Sara, factory workers seized their workplaces. They reprogrammed construction machines to build weapons instead of goods for the Empire. The Dominion garrison was trapped and besieged. Rebellion spread like fire through dry grass. World after world rose up. Species that had been crushed for centuries remembered that they had once been free. They remembered that they had once had pride, and they reached for it again. Lieutenant Kongnari watched reports of the uprisings with tears in her eyes. Her broadcasts had helped start this. Her words had given hope to billions. She had not expected such a response. She had not imagined that one voice could matter so much. "The Dominion is cracking," she reported to Admiral Park Soong. 14 worlds in open rebellion. 32 with active resistance movements. Their forces are stretched thin. They cannot fight us and suppress their subjects at the same time. Park Soong nodded slowly. This was the strategy. Attack from outside. Inspire revolt from within. Make the Dominion bleed from 1,000 cuts until they had no strength left. Continue the broadcasts. Tell the rebels we are with them. Tell them help is coming, is it? Can we actually help them? Park Soong was quiet for a moment. The truth was complicated. Humanity could barely defend itself. They did not have the ships or soldiers to liberate other worlds. But hope was also a weapon. And sometimes a lie that inspired courage was more valuable than a truth that created despair. Tell them help is coming, he repeated, and then we will find a way to make it true. Commander Li Tae led the assault carrier Defiant toward the Corvette shipyard. This was the heart of Dominion military production. Half of their warships were built here. Destroying it would cripple their ability to replace losses. The attack force was small. 60 ships. The shipyard was defended by over 200. The mathematics were clear. This should be impossible, but Li Tae had learned something about the Dominion. They were predictable. They followed patterns. They expected enemies to behave in certain ways. And when enemies did not, they struggled to adapt. All ships begin approach, he ordered. Remember the plan. Speed and chaos. Make them guess wrong. The human fleet split into 6 groups, each approaching from a different angle. Dominion defenders tried to form a unified response, but they could not cover every direction at once. By the time they committed to one approach, the human ships had changed position. Dr. Shinbora's weapons made the difference. Pulse engines on drone ships detonated with the force of small suns. Dominion capital ships died in seconds. Rail cannons punched through shields that had stopped energy weapons for centuries. Nuclear missiles found the gaps in defensive formations. The battle was brutal. Ships died on both sides. Human crews fought knowing that retreat was not an option. Victory or death. Those were the only choices. Captain Yoon Jin arrived with the silent knife in the middle of the chaos. She had been watching, waiting for the right moment. Now she saw it. The enemy flagship was exposed, its escorts destroyed or distracted. All power to engines, she ordered. Set collision course for their bridge. Her crew did not hesitate. They had followed her into darkness many times. They would follow her one last time. The silent knife accelerated toward the flagship. Defensive fire tore into the small ship. Systems failed. Flames erupted, but the ship kept moving. Yoon Jin's hands stayed steady on the controls in her last moments. She thought about Earth, about the people she was protecting, about the future she would never see. It was worth it. All of it was worth it. The silent knife struck the flagship's bridge at maximum velocity. The explosion consumed both ships. The Dominion command structure collapsed. Without their flagship to coordinate defense, the remaining ships fell into confusion. Commander Li Te saw the moment. All ships, concentrate fire on the shipyard. Everything you have now? The human fleet turned its weapons on the massive structure. Explosions rippled across its surface. Sections broke away and tumbled into the void. Construction bays collapsed. Half-built warships died before they could ever fly. Within an hour, the Corvette shipyard was debris. Li Te surveyed the destruction. They had lost 18 ships, almost 3,000 people, Captain Yun Jin, so many others. The price was high, but the Dominion had lost far more. Their shipyard, their flagship, hundreds of vessels, and something more important than ships or resources. They had lost the belief that they could not be. Defeated across the galaxy, rebels heard the news. The Dominion's greatest shipyard was gone. Their armada was weakened. Their empire was burning. The war had truly begun. Empress Velthary stood in the ruins of her council chamber. The windows were shattered. Smoke drifted through the air. Outside, her capital city burned. The rebellion had reached the throne world. For 1,000 years. This place had been the heart of the Dominion, safe, untouchable, sacred. Now slaves were rising in the streets. Workers were seizing factories. Soldiers who had sworn loyalty were laying down their weapons and walking away. How did this happen? She asked the empty room. But she knew the answer. It had started with humans. With a single word, no, that word had echoed across the galaxy. It had reminded conquered species that they had once said no as well before they were beaten, before they learned to kneel. And now they were remembering. Now they were rising. Admiral Corvax entered, his uniform torn and dirty. He had been fighting in the streets, trying to restore order, failing. Your Majesty, we must evacuate. The palace is no longer secure. Velthary turned to face him. Her eyes held a strange calm. Evacuate to where? The rebellion has spread to 47 worlds. Our fleet is scattered trying to suppress uprisings. The shipyards are destroyed. We have lost control. Then we retreat, consolidate, rebuild. There is no rebuilding from this. The fear that held our empire together is gone. Once slaves learn they can fight, they never forget. She walked toward the broken window. The humans taught them that. Those primitives from a single world taught the galaxy to resist. Corvax was silent. He had no answer. He had served the Dominion his entire life. He had believed in its power, its permanence. Now he watched it crumble. Send a message to Earth, Velthary said finally. Tell them I wish to negotiate. In the war room of the Horizon Station, Admiral Park Sung received the message. He read it twice, not believing the words. They want to surrender? Kim Yuna asked. Not surrender, negotiate. They want to talk terms? After everything they have done? The threats? The attacks? Now they want to talk? Park Sung looked at his officers. They had fought so hard. They had lost so many. Lieutenant Choi Hanna, Captain Yun Jin, thousands of others. The idea of making peace with those who had tried to destroy them felt wrong, insulting, but he was tired and wise, and he understood that wars end in only two ways: total destruction or negotiation. Total destruction of the Dominion would take years, perhaps decades. How many more would die? We will listen, he said. That does not mean we will agree, but we will listen. The meeting took place on a space station in neutral territory. Empress Velthary came with a small escort. Admiral Park soon came with Commander Li Te and Captain Kim Yuna. They sat across from each other at a simple table. No weapons. No threats. Just words. Velthary studied the human admiral. He was old, scarred. His eyes held the weight of everyone he had lost. But there was no hatred in his face. Only weariness. You have destroyed my empire, she said. We gave hope to those you had enslaved. The rest happened because your empire was built on sand. Velthary was quiet for a moment. I have ruled for 200 years. I have seen species rise and fall. I have crushed rebellions before, but this is different. You are different. You do not fight like anyone we have faced. We fight to survive. We fight for freedom. We fight because the alternative is to kneel, and humanity does not kneel. Kim Yuna leaned forward. What do you want from us? Why call this meeting? Velthri looked at the young officer. So fierce, so certain. She reminded Velthri of herself long ago, before power had made her something else. I want peace. Not because I believe in it, not because I have learned compassion, but because I cannot win this war. You have shown my subjects that resistance is possible. That door cannot be closed again. I can fight for years and lose slowly, or I can negotiate now and preserve something. What are you offering? Li Te asked. The Dominion will withdraw from all contact with human space. We will release any humans captured during the conflict. We will not seek revenge, and the worlds in rebellion? Velthari's expression hardened. They are internal matters, not your concern. Park Sung shook his head. That is not acceptable. We did not start this war to free only ourselves. We started it because slavery is wrong. Conquest is wrong. We will not make peace while billions remain in chains. You ask too much. My own people would never accept it, and your own people will continue to burn. Park Sung stood. This meeting is over. When you are ready to discuss true peace, contact us again. He walked out. His officers followed. Velthri sat alone watching them leave. She had underestimated them again. She had thought that offering safety for their world would be enough. But they did not only care about their world. They cared about all worlds. About all species, it was infuriating. And, in a way she would never admit admirable. The war continued. But it was no longer the war the Dominion had expected. It was 1,000 wars on 1,000 worlds. Rebels fighting with weapons supplied by human ghost fleets. Slave populations rising with hope in their hearts and human words on their lips. An empire fracturing piece by piece. On Earth, humanity rebuilt and prepared. New ships, new weapons, new soldiers. They knew the Dominion might attack again. They knew the peace would be long and difficult, but they had proven something. They had shown the galaxy that resistance was possible, that the powerful could be challenged. That freedom was worth fighting for. General Okyung addressed the World Council. We have won important battles, but the war is far from over. The Dominion still has resources, still has loyal forces, still has the will to fight. We must remain strong. We must continue to support our allies on other worlds. We must never let our guard down. Admiral Park Soon stood at his window one last time. Earth floated below, blue and green and beautiful. The same view he had watched when the Dominion's ultimatum had arrived. The same view he had defended with everything he had. Kim Yuna joined him. She was older now. Battle had aged her. But she was still the same officer who had stood beside him from the beginning. Do you think we will ever have real peace? She asked. I do not know. Perhaps not in our lifetime. But we have given the next generation a chance. We have shown what is possible. That is enough. Is it? Park Sung thought about the people they had lost. The soccer. Ifis is made. The family's broken. The graves that would never be visited. Has to be. Because the alternative is despair. And I refuse to despair. Across the galaxy, the word continued to spread. Humans. The species that said no. The species that fought back. The species that taught the galaxy to resist. On worlds still under Dominion control, people whispered in the darkness. They shared stories of Earth. They repeated the human messages. They planned. They hoped. On worlds that had already won their freedom, new governments formed. Alliances were proposed. Trade routes established. A new order was beginning to take shape, one not based on fear and conquest, but on cooperation and mutual respect. It would take years, perhaps generations. There would be setbacks and struggles. Some worlds would fall back into darkness. Some would rise into light. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The galaxy had changed. And it had changed because one small species on one small world had refused to kneel. Admiral Park Sung sent one final message, broadcast across every frequency, reaching every corner of Dominion space and beyond. We are humanity. We came from a single world. We were told to kneel and we refused. We were told we would be destroyed and we survived. We fought not just for ourselves, but for everyone who has ever been told they must submit or die. We stand with you. We believe in you, and we will never stop fighting until every being in this galaxy is free. The Dominion's day is ending. A new dawn is coming, and we will face it together. The transmission ended. Silence returned to space, but across 1,000 worlds, hearts beat a little faster. Hands clenched a little tighter. Eyes looked toward the stars with something they had not felt in centuries. Hope. The war had begun, and humanity would see it through to the end.